Welcome to Gene and Mike do the New York Times crossword.
Hi, I'm Jean.
And I'm Mike. And today we are doing the crossword for Thursday, June 5th, 2025. So, on a day with a lot of numbers in it that are divisible by 5, did you do the crossword?
I did.
And are your thoughts divided about this crossword, or are you unanimously in favor of it or unanimously against?
I am just unanimously in awe of it. So
Yes.
what about you?
It took me a really long time to figure out what was going on.
Oh.
Because I tried to stay away from the revealer. And so I was
why would you do that? Because that sort of helped me solve it very quickly.
Well, that's in a way, I was just like, this doesn't quite fit. Fine, I'll just leave it.
Well,
and I thought,
I did that too, but then...
I guess I just wanted to postpone that moment of joy, that aha moment. I didn't want to rush into it. I wanted to have to work for it.
Oh.
So, but there were a large number of themed clues
10.
in this crossword.
There were 10.
Yes. And so there were a lot of places where I'm like, but and I thought, as I got clue after clue, I thought, I'll be able to figure this out by looking at the answers, and I simply did not. So
Did you ever think you needed to do a rebus?
I might have, but I mean, they were the answers were really hard for me to. Well, I guess if I'd been thinking clearly, I might have thought more about rebuses, but I guess there were so many places where I was having problems that I wasn't able to focus on one and say, that has to be that. For example, 14 across confirmed to be true. I now, in the light of day, see that, of course, that should have been verified.
Right.
And it turned out to be very. But honestly, I wasn't sure about the why, because 4 down, word that can redundantly follow I, turns out to be myself.
Yes.
And I might have had enough letters. I'm not sure. But I had a lot of trouble with this crossword.
Oh.
Until I got to the revealer, because then all the answers that I did have, I suddenly understood why they were correct.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe we should talk about that.
I think that would help, yes.
Yes, yes. As we mentioned before, there were 10 themed clues. And they were simple, one-word answers, but they didn't fit. But if you solved the opposite direction, like if they were going across and you solved the downs, or if they were going down and you solved the across, you came up with a real word, but it wasn't a word that really solved the clue.
Right.
So as we were saying before, 14 across was, what was it?
Confirmed to be true.
Confirmed to be true. And as Mike said, verify would have been the right answer, but you only got 4 squares, so you only had very. And the same thing like with 7 down. Armed thieves, and all you could fit in was bits, B-I-T-S. Or a real stretch was 16 across. Someone who knows how the sausage gets made. And the answer there was 4 squares, and if you solved from the other direction, it was share.
Yes.
Like the singer, share. Yeah. Okay, so none of this is making any sense.
Yes.
But then when you get down to the revealer, 63 across, emphatic instruction for entering the answers to this puzzle's 10 starred clues. And the answer to that was no ifs, ands, or buts.
Right.
And every one of those answers had either an if, and an, or a but that was not in the answer.
Yes.
There were no ifs, there were no ands, and there were no buts.
Right.
So for vary, the real answer was verify. So the if was left out. So no if there. And 7 down, the what was that one again? The armed thieves. Well, the answer was bits, but if you put an and in there, it would be bandits, which would make more sense. But there was no and. And let's see, and then 16 across share for the person who knows how to make the sausages. You put a but in front of that, and you get butcher.
Yep.
So, and that's the way they all were. They were all. common words that you ended up with that didn't solve the clue, but if you put an if, an and, or a but in it, they did. So I think my favorite was 32 down. It was the hardest one for me to figure out, but it was like dress shirts, typically. And the answer turned out to be toned. Put a but in front of that, it's buttoned.
Yep.
So after you figured out what was going on, these became kind of humorous.
Right.
But anyway, that was the theme. I don't remember ever seeing a theme quite like this before. But
so rumor has it, I was looking on Xword Info, and apparently there was a similar theme used in 1997.
Oh my!
So
that was long before
28 years ago. I'm impressed that Jim Horn knew it. But
Wow.
in any event, what happens with me is, if I get an answer and I can't figure it out, I'm just like, and I try and rationalize it. So it's like confirmed to be true, very. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's very.
Uh-huh.
It's like, fine, I'll just move on. And then when I got share, part of the problem with this was, of course, each one of them was missing a different word.
Right.
So there wasn't a sort of one pattern that you could grab.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And of course, I'm sure there are lots of really, awesome crossword solvers who were able to just spot that right away.
Uh-huh.
And perhaps they were crossword solvers who were solving it when they were awake.
Yes.
But but it was a brilliant crossword.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I felt so much happier after I got, but even after I knew what was going on, buttoned, it's just like, I need a but in front, and butcher. It seems to me putting the but in front of the word, I found that harder to sort of fit.
Yes, me too.
But I'll tell you, 28 down, removing lumps from, in a way, was sifting, and the answer that appeared in the grid was sting.
Right.
And, you had to figure out what the correct answer was. And I'm sure that you figured out sifting faster than I did.
I did, because I had just done some sifting. I'd done some baking in the morning, and my flour was really lumpy. So
Wow.
I better sift this before I finish this. I was making bread. So I had just done some sifting.
See, I just did some coding, which didn't help with this crossword at all.
No, there was no coding in there.
But there were, as you say, a total of 10 clued answers.
Yes.
That's a lot of answers to sort of sort through.
Ifs, ands, and buts.
Yes, yeah. And they neatly distributed them, 3 ifs, 3 ands, and 4 buts.
Uh-huh.
So they didn't just sort of like, I'm surprised they let them put in that many.
Yeah.
But it made for a great crossword.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was amazing.
There were some.
I solved it very quickly, though.
Really?
It was one of my fastest times for a Thursday. So yeah.
Did you go for the revealer first?
No, I just kept filling it in, and where it didn't fit, I just sort of left it blank. Mm-hmm. And then when I got down to the no ifs, ands, or buts, then I went right back to those themed clues, and I thought, okay, there's no if, there's no and, or there's no but in this answer. And like that first one, vary and verify, that was the one that right away I'm like, well, that should be verify. Oh, if is supposed to be in there, but it's not. So then I knew right away, okay, it's either going to have an if, and, or but that's not there. And then it all just fell into place.
Wow. You are one of those superior solvers.
Well, except for 30, the buttoned one that I mentioned earlier. 38 across was diminutive suffix in Spanish. And I put ITA, like señorita. Uh-huh. But ITO is also a diminutive suffix. So I had tanned with just one end instead of toned. And I'm like, what could that be?
Not a word.
I was trying to think, where could you put an if or an and or a but in that? And then I thought, well, I'll try it with an O, because then I got a real word. And then it's solved. And I still hadn't quite got buttoned. But then eventually I figured that out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Always good when the crossword solves
Yeah.
before you figured out why.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
In addition to the great theme, there were lots of other good clues in the grid. We had 5 across, was leader of brothers, was Abbott.
Yes.
That didn't come to me right away. Mm-hmm. Did it come to you right away?
Yes, that did come to me right away, even though I don't know a lot about brothers and monasteries and things like that. But 18 across was one that I had trouble with, Goliath. So I put giant, because
Right.
Goliath was a giant, but it turned out to be Titan. Titan.
Yeah, I had 5 down inclined as apt right away, so I knew it started with a T.
Oh, uh-huh.
So that sort of narrowed it down.
Mm-hmm.
And also 9 down. This clue's number plus 1. Of course, 9 plus 1 is 10.
Yes.
So I had the T in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And if I couldn't figure out the middle 3 letters, I was probably not going to be able to solve the crossword.
Yeah.
We had 20 across. That was rainwater clearer. And I'm like, I have no idea. It was wiper.
Yes.
That was cute, I thought.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I did not know 23 down. Shoot into the pocket in snooker. And the answer was pot.
Yes, I did not know that either.
You're not a big snooker player?
Nope. No, I don't know that I've ever played.
Okay, and I presume they're talking about the pocket of the board or the table, and
Yep.
not somebody's pocket.
No.
See, if I was playing snooker, I'd probably be as likely to shoot it into somebody's pocket as the actual snooker
I
pocket.
see. Uh-huh.
That's how bad I would be.
Mm-hmm.
33 across, Lil Belly. I went for gut
Oh,
because I had the U in the middle, but it was
Yeah.
tum. That sounds a lot more appropriate.
yes.
We had, I liked 31 down. Barrier to entry was a style, Stile.
Mm-hmm.
And then that crossed with 45 across. Stirrup was rile.
Yes.
So we had style and rile.
Oh, you're right. And they shared an L.
Yes, I just sort of like that rhyme there.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I thought the best clue in the entire grid was 57 across, companionship, arc.
Yes.
And I'm like, huh?
Companionship.
Yes.
Companionship.
Yeah.
Definitely an arc.
And right above that, animal symbol of innocence. And I thought, it's got to be a dove. But that's peace.
This piece, yeah.
And innocence turns out to be a doe.
Yes. I thought lamb, but of course you only had 3 squares. But yeah, doe.
Let's see. We had 51 down. I forgot this one. It was kilns for hops. And I had the word musts in mind.
Oh,
And then I decided it was orsts.
no.
But then I decided it was the correct answer of oasts.
Right.
Oasts.
Yeah. That's a classic crossword word. And that used to be used a lot more in the past. You don't see it quite so often today.
Well, it's been used 80 times. First time in 1943. Clued as Hop Drying Kilns by Charles Erlencotter.
Uh-huh.
I remember old Charles.
Oh,
I mean, if he was writing in 1943, he'd have to be old Charles at this point.
I think it's always clued the same way, kiln, or something related to a kiln. But I was thinking back in the 80s or 90s, when I was first kind of starting to do crosswords, it seemed like it was more popular then.
Its heyday was in 1990 when it appeared a total of 5 times that year.
Yeah.
And there have been many lean years where it has not showed up at all.
Right, yeah. Yeah, you don't see it as often, but I learned that word from crosswords.
So that's why I'm starting a new foundation. The Oasts stands. We're gonna have to work on the title a little bit, but the Oast stands are maybe fans of Oasts.
Stands. Oh, I see what you're saying. Stands.
Oast. Yeah, but that's really so hard to say. I think
Yes, it is.
fans of Oast. I think fans of Oasts. I don't think we're going to get a lot of members, to be perfectly honest, especially since the dues are going to be ridiculously expensive. We just need one person to join it.
Yes.
$1 million will be our fee.
I see.
There we go.
69 across was a word you don't see too often. The clue was cliched. I put trite,
Yep, me too.
but it was banal.
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 Yeah. And then 60 across, general name on a Chinese menu was so.
Yes.
I was glad to see so made a comeback. Haven't seen so in a while.
Well, it's been on and off. I've seen it a few times.
By the way, listeners, so is spelled TSO. And, you're right, it has appeared 3 times this year.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Never mind.
but it first appeared in 1975, so it's been a while, but not as long as not as long as OST. OST has been around for a long, long time.
Right.
I just like to say OST. We had 63. Getting back to the revealer of 63 across. Emphatic instruction for entering the answers to this puzzle's 10-starred clues, ? And I just thought, as I was reading over that clue, it was so tightly written. I don't think you could make it any tauter than it already is.
Right.
And I thought, Will Shortz and company have clearly absorbed the lessons of Strunk and White's Elements of Style. They know how to write concisely, with concision. And I just thought that was, all these clues are examples of that, but that one just sort of stood out. It's just like, you couldn't make it any shorter than that. I suppose you could have left off emphatic, but you needed emphatic there.
I guess. Yeah.
I think. We had 60 down. 60 down was get ready to hit all the right notes, and that was tune.
Yep.
I thought that was sort of cute. And speaking of Stan, we had 61 down, 1970s tennis champ Smith, Stan Smith.
Stan Smith.
Have you ever heard of Stan Smith?
I think I remember that name. That was kind of before I was aware of a lot of things going on, but yeah, I remember that name, Stan Smith.
I don't.
So
doesn't ring a bell.
I love 48 down. Food subject to internet debate over whether or not it's a sandwich. Taco.
Yes.
I did not know that was an internet debate. Is it a sandwich?
Of course not.
It's a taco, right?
There's no bread involved, right?
No.
No bread, no sandwich. Of course, then what do you call the unwich at Jimmy John's?
Is that a sandwich?
It's a sandwich shop. It ought to be.
But I thought that was interesting. I didn't realize that was such a controversy.
Yep. Good to know people have important topics to discuss.
It's sort of like, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? So that's always been a debate.
62 down, home of the historic Oscar Hall Palace was Oslo.
Yes.
Have we been there?
No.
Okay, just checking. Maybe we'd wandered in and I forgot.
No.
All right, one last one to wrap it up. 49 across, one standing near a pond maybe was Reed.
Yes.
That took me a bit.
Oh,
As I said, all of these clues took me a bit, but it was a worthwhile and very enjoyable crossword by Timothy Getz.
Very good, Timothy.
A debut.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Wow. Terrific.
All right. That is it for today. So thanks, everyone, for listening. Sorry if we misled anyone by telling you to look for rebuses today. We did not have any prior knowledge, as is obvious based on this crossword, but tomorrow's crossword is going to be out soon, and we're going to tackle it.
Yep.
Don't expect rebuses in tomorrow's crossword.
Probably not.
Probably not.
But it will be a toughie one.
Yes.
Sure.
And be sure to come back and hear us talk about that crossword tomorrow.
Bye-bye.